Hi, everybody. I'm Laura,
And I'm Allison.
and this is the Earp Top 5 podcast for freedom.
Freedom! On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Wynonna Earp, episode 411, Better Dig 2. And this one was written by the one and only Emily Andress.
It goes like this. Ah! Do you know what that sound is? That's the sound of the roller coaster that we were on
Yes.
throughout this episode.
I think the title refers to how many graves I probably dug for myself during that
Yeah.
one.
So this was it was a pretty good episode, jam-packed with all the information that we probably wanted to know about. There we go.
There was a lot. And I am surprised every time. I don't know why. I think that it's not possible, but every time I'm watching this show, I'm like, there's so much left. How are we going to figure it all out? And then somehow we get to the end and it's like, oh wow, we figured it all out.
Yeah. I'm what the kids called shooketh, I believe.
That is correct.
So do you want me to start or do you want to start? Because I actually did something that I probably have never done before on this podcast, and my list goes chronologically.
Wow.
So
it's very rare.
It's very rare that I'm that organized.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's start it out. So wherever you go, I can kind of follow in chronological order.
Okay. Well, my first thing is what started the episode, which is Mercedes getting shot. It was just the way she was like dropping these she's bleeding profusely on the floor, and the way she's just like dropping these one-liners, like her dress got stuck in customs or whatever, and she couldn't she waited so long to get this particular dress and it's ruined by blood and all this other stuff. But the funny moment of it was, and let me just say, we needed probably this like funny lightheartedness at the beginning for everything else that was going to come after. But I don't know if you've ever seen Monty Python, the Holy Grail. So there's a scene in that movie where the King Arthur goes up to the Black Knight, who's ironically enough guarding a territory, and the Dark Knight won't let him pass, so they decide to have a sword fight, and King Arthur basically cuts off the Black Knight's like appendages, every like one arm, then the other arm, then one leg, then the other leg. And the Black Knight is just standing there and he's just like, oh, 'tis but a flesh wound. Oh, it's just a scratch. And it's like, dude, you're just a stump in the forest right now. So I just thought it just reminded me of that. But then subsequently, Mercedes bleeding profusely, she was like, come on, guys. I mean, we all know that I'm a goner unless I get made into a vamp. And Vampsades, or as I like to call it, Mercedes 5.0, because she's been Realtor Mercedes, Widow Mercedes, face ripped off Mercedes, face improved Mercedes, like,
or the Bolshar's wife version too, where she's
now Vamp Mercedes.
She's had a lot of roles, man.
Yeah. And then we get her and she took on that Vamp Mercedes like from the jump.
I think it may be her best role yet.
Yes. They broke out of the jail cell. They went and she started feeding on like almost everybody there. And she had a good line right before the doors opened. She was like, come on, let us out. Some of this food are human beings. And then she did have a moment where she was like, sire, what do we do to Doc? And she's like, well, there goes my feminism, whatever. But yeah, that had to be a top moment for me.
I also loved that because, like you had mentioned, Mercedes has literally been every version that I guess just came out of Emily Andress's brain. Like, she's like, what about this, Danny Kind? What about this? And Danny's like, sure, I'll be that. She's done all of these things. And honestly, whenever she got shot, and it's just going to kind of lead into my moment, because one of my moments that I wanted to talk about is Doc and Jeremy in the jail cell. So
Mhm.
it kind of has to do with Mercedes
Yes.
laying there on the floor bleeding. And like you said, all of the one-liners from Mercedes really gave this whole section of the episode kind of a comedic little tidbit of comedy in there,
Yeah,
because the other
levity.
side, yeah, a little levity, because the other side of it was just so deep and depressing, because it's like Doc and Jeremy were up against each other, because Doc, being a vampire himself, is standing in front of a woman who's profusively bleeding. He's a vampire. He wants the blood. You saw what happened to him when he got Charlie out of the fire in that one episode, and there was blood, and he got overwhelmed and he killed him. Like he
Yeah.
the vampireness overtook him and he could not resist. So it's like he's really trying to go after Mercedes, and Jeremy's like, no, you can't do this. He's holding him back with all his little might. I mean, Jeremy's a small guy compared to Doc, who's also a vampire with super strength. So it's like he's holding him back with all of his might. And he even says at one point, like, a little help here, like, and nobody in this jail cell will help him hold Doc back. Jeremy has always put Doc on like a pedestal, and sort of he's idolized him, he's loved him. In whatever romantic or friendship way you wanted to see that as, he loved him. And Doc, he knew that Doc was still in there somewhere. And even when Doc became a vampire, Jeremy wasn't happy about it. But I think that he sort of, I guess, tried to come to terms with it, because he knew Doc was in there somehow. And so the fact that Jeremy gets really emotional and he kind of grabs, Doc by the head, and they're like forehead to forehead or cheek to cheek. And he's like, I'm not keeping you from this because I don't want you to kill Mercedes. I'm keeping you from this because I don't want you to do it. I don't want it to affect you.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and then of course, after Doc fights him a little more, he says, you know what? If you're going to take an innocent person's life, you might as well take me, because I've lost my love. I've lost my job. And if you do this, then I've lost my brother too. And like Doc stands up and he goes at him, and you're like, what's he going to do? Is he going for Jeremy or what? But then he hugs him and he's like,
Yeah.
I will resist. And I think that was such a great moment for Doc and Jeremy, and such a great culmination of that friendship, because think back to like the very beginning of Doc and Jeremy.
Yeah.
And now Jeremy is literally standing in front of vampire Doc saying, you know what, if you're going to do this, take me, because you're not the same person. And that's what gets Doc to resist, is thinking he might lose Jeremy.
Yeah.
And I love that. And shout out to Vamp Sadie's though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think your next moment, if we're going to try to stay chronologically, I think your next moment fits into the chronological order here. So why don't you go ahead and tell us?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about Nicole's hero moment at the BBD facility, which kind of plays into after they escape the jail cell and they're letting everyone out, and they're, themselves being heroes, Doc, Jeremy, Freddie, Vamp Sadie's, they're helping everybody out. And then they get to this big, large door, and the door is locked, and they're like, oh no. And then like fog starts coming down, or some kind of smoke starts coming into the facility. And Jeremy realizes that they're gassing them out. And it's just like what happened in Monument, which is what they did in the Monument facility.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole moment with Nicole kind of starts with her back in the woods when she's kind of lost, and she starts to hear this BBD chatter on her radio, and she realizes kind of what they're planning. And she realizes that she's kind of going to have to abandon her pursuit of finding Waverly, and she's going to go have to help her people, because she says this is her town. She's the sheriff. She's got to go help her people. So then it kind of leads her to the BBD facility, and the doors open, and Doc and Jeremy, they think that they've done it. They're like, oh yeah, we're good. We got them to open this door. And Graham is standing on the other side, and he's like, you'll never get away with this. And Mercedes is like, we just did. And he's like, not you.
Not you.
And then we see Nicole come into frame with her gun to the head. And I kind of did like a cheer.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, Nicole, you show him who's boss in this town. And I love her little speech to him. She's like, you see here, this town is inclusive and we treat people, she goes on this whole speech about her people and treating them with respect. And he even makes a comment about werewolves. And she's like, his name is Freddie. He's my florist.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's great. But I love that she just kind of like, she kind of takes her role. Like it solidifies her purpose in this town, and that what she's doing is supposed to be taking care of the people of Purgatory.
Especially because like not 2 episodes, like she was still shunned by the town.
Exactly. I thought that was a great contrast.
And really, how much time could have passed? Like none at all. Like maybe a couple of days, a week at most.
Yeah, I think she really, and I think maybe she really deserved this hero moment because, like, since the town did abandon her and they didn't vote her as sheriff, maybe this kind of helped her feel like she was back where she was supposed to be. You know, maybe she feels more validated in the fact that, yes, I am supposed to be taking care of the people of Purgatory. They need me. If I weren't here, they'd be gassed out in the facility right now. Like they wouldn't have been able to escape. So to see her get that moment just brought me so much joy. And I loved the fact that she was the one to get them out and to lead them out the door.
Yeah. And I there was 2 other like little bits of thing there where when she mentioned Freddie and he was like, I actually prefer Fred, and she's like, not the time. Like, task at hand, bro. And
Yeah.
then there was the other part where you were saying how she was saying how the town isn't for people like Graham, and he's like, what, military? She's like, no, utter dickwad. And I was like, yeah.
And she just clocks him over the head, and I'm like,
yeah,
yep, that's what you got to do.
yeah. And then she leads everybody out, and I mean, obviously we knew that was coming because it was in the trailer, but to see it play out, see, this is why I don't understand. I mean, I understand people like that don't want spoilers and things like that. I get it. But something that you might see a millisecond of or a photo, the way it plays out is so different than you probably could have ever imagined from seeing like a short little snippet. Because, that's just me.
I agree. Yeah.
So from there, I think we got to go with another one of yours right now.
Well, we're trying to stay chronological here. So
yeah,
I'm going to talk about just a Cleo and Rachel moment, which was them in the forest. So speaking from what happened in the last week's episode, Wynonna gives Rachel this gun and says, pointed at Cleo, don't let her leave. We catch up with Cleo and Rachel, and we see them just as we left them, and Rachel's got the gun to Cleo. And I really loved the moments between the two of them. There's kind of 2 moments, them in the forest and then also them at the Magpie Ranch. But Rachel has this gun to Cleo, and then Cleo, doing her evil thing, just goes ahead and tells her that the Reaper they sent in was Billy. And Rachel's like, no,
I know. By the way.
Yeah, the fact that she told her, I was like, I just knew she would tell her. And then Rachel says, no, Wynonna wouldn't do that. And then Cleo pulls out the tooth, which why you're carrying the tooth around, I don't know.
That's what I thought too. I was like, I
don't know why, but she pulled it out to prove that it was Billy. And then Rachel said a line that was really impactful for me. She said, whatever choices Wynonna's made, she has a plan. And I think that's really telling because even in the last episode, when Rachel asked to be trained by her, you can see that like she really trusts Wynonna. Like she knows that Wynonna has a duty. She knows that she's got a plan to fight this scenario. And she's, Rachel's like, whatever choices Wynonna's made, she has a plan. And Cleo keeps kind of bad talking her. I think she's kind of trying to get in Rachel's head about it. She's saying things like, she may be your family, but are you hers?
That's what solidified it. I was just about to mention that.
Yeah.
That's what took her to kind of get Rachel to do what she wanted her to do, which was
de-reap Billy.
Yeah, de-reap Billy. Yeah. At first I thought it was just like BS. Like
it did seem like it because I was like, that's a lot of blood. What is she doing?
Yeah, I just the whole thing, because then she was just like, she's like, is it working? Is it working? And Cleo's behind her, like, yeah, I'm just here trying to gather the sticky sticks for the ritual. And I'm like, what does she do? And then she goes to reach for the gun. I mean,
that's kind of the thing. We see her reaching for that gun, and then the next time we see them is actually on the Magpie Ranch when Cleo has Rachel tied up. And I think that this kind of ties into kind of the doubts that Cleo put into Rachel's head because Wynonna does show up. Wynonna does come for Rachel. And I think that is probably a great feeling for Rachel to know that Wynonna actually came to save her. You know, Cleo put so many doubts in her head about whether Wynonna even cared about her. But I think that having Wynonna actually show up, you know, to save Rachel really meant a lot. And she was convinced by one and only Billy. Billy's like, you got to go save Rachel. And so Wynonna, she goes. And I just loved seeing Cleo and Rachel together. We didn't get a lot of them, you know, this season. And they're such a great pairing. They feed off of each other so well, kind of being that the teen who's trying to be good but has an interesting past, and then the bad guy who's not really bad but has to be bad because of her family. Like it's such a weird pairing, those two.
Wynonna is the anti-hero hero and Cleo is the anti-villain villain.
Right. Yeah. They're so
Because
similar but yet so different.
right, because it's circumstance that they are stuck in what it was. So Rachel and Cleo de-reaped Billy, and Billy advised Wynonna that she needed to go rescue Rachel at the Magpie Ranch. Cleo's end game was to take the Clanton heir burden off of herself and put it onto Wynonna, because she says that, you know, being the Clanton heir, you have control over these Reapers. They eat all the time. They don't sleep. They keep you up. And she had enough. So her greatest like revenge for Wynonna and the Earps is to then put this burden on Wynonna. But it doesn't happen that way.
Well, I think it's important to note that Cleo said she wants the curse to go to the Clantons, you know, biggest enemy.
Oh, right.
Or worst enemy, who Cleo thinks is Wynonna.
Yeah. But it's not. It winds up going to Doc. And so he shows up at the Clanton Ranch, at the Magpie Ranch, and he has now taken on the Clanton heir mantle. And which brings us to my next moment, which is the duel between Wynonna and Doc.
It's also my next moment, so we're going to have a lot to say.
Yeah. Strap in, everybody. So the thing that I like, and a little, just obviously you guys have probably watched the episode, but just a little bit of background is that Cleo said to Wynonna that Ma'am never told her the whole plan. And so they were expecting Wynonna to become the heir. So when Doc showed up, it was like a punch to the gut. It's like, wait, what's going on? Additionally, if you all recall, in episode 404, I want to say, Ma'am said that they were going to get destroyed from within. So was this why Ma'am wanted Nicole to give up Doc? Did she want to put this burden on Doc to begin with, but she knew it would go to Doc versus Wynonna? So I think that kind of answered our question there, is like, what's the reason why Ma'am wanted Doc?
Yeah, it's a good point.
The points that I have of why this duel was so important was, number one, Wynonna did not want to fight Doc. And his persona in that circle, in the dueling circle, was just hatred.
Yeah, that was scary.
And we didn't know if it was like, you know how people say, you know, the truth comes out like when you're drunk or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't know if that was like the Clanton heir in him talking, or if that was like just Doc revealing the truth about Wynonna, because there was a lot of animosity up until this point. But the thing that got me about this duel was when they started, Wynonna wouldn't turn around, because she knew that Doc, if he was in there, his moral compass would not let him shoot somebody in the back. So he knew ahead of time that this was going to happen. And so he loaded his gun with, I'm assuming, what would be the wrong size bullets, because when he shot, or when the person overtaking him shot, the gun didn't fire, it exploded back at him.
Yeah, backfired.
Yeah, it backfired. Yeah, that's the word for it.
Yes, that's the correct terminology.
um
It fired back at him, also known as backfired.
So he knew it was going to happen. So he loaded the gun purposely with that. I think some people were saying he loaded it with wooden bullets or silver bullets, whatever gets rid of a vampire. But no, he loaded it with like the wrong size bullets so it couldn't shoot forward. And it backfired.
But also, can we talk about in between this, the reason Wynonna participates at all is because Reaper Holt, is on the side holding Rachel by the neck, and they're threatening to hurt Rachel if Wynonna doesn't pick up the gun. It's like, Doc really hit a low. Like, Rachel's supposed to be Doc's family too, and he's threatening Rachel if Wynonna doesn't participate.
He's old Daddy Blue Eyes. Like, did that mean nothing to you, Doc? Well, that's the thing. Like, there was, and I'm gonna say it's like the Doc's compassion was kind of coming through a little bit there, and he knew. So like he made every preparation that he could think of, in the short amount of time that he had to think about this, so that if it came down to it, nothing would it would take him out.
Right.
And when he was lying there after the gun backfired on him,
and Wynonna shot Peacemaker, that somehow did a loop-de-loop and shot Holt.
Right. Well, she shot it in front of her and it ricocheted back to Holt. It was I think that was kind of a little bit of a throwback to when she first fired Peacemaker at the Purgatory Sign, when she first got it out of the well, and she knew that it would ricochet. And then also on the Homestead, when she shot it at the Revenants,
the bike.
Carl and all of them, to get Waverly off, like when Waverly was being hung. Yeah. So I think it was a throwback to that, or I'd like to think it was anyway. Mm-hmm. So he's lying there and he wants Wynonna to end it for him.
I'm gonna cry. That was hurtful.
Yeah. So he says he wants his pain to stop, and she says, but mine never ends. And it's really a moment of, so many times she has had to make these decisions for the greater good, but it's kind of destroyed her a little bit inside every single time. And this moment of him asking her to end things for her, oh man.
It was, I was watching, and I don't know how Emily pulled this off, because I legitimately thought they were about to kill off Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
Like, there was like a full moment where I stared at the screen and I was like, oh no. Because it felt like the moment lasted for so long, and he was so convincing in like the reasons he wanted her to shoot him. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna actually kill off Doc Holliday. And the pairing of them two, I mean, it was just, any moment between Tim and Mel is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But to see Doc laying there, he's hurt, something's happening to him. Like, I'm not entirely sure medically what is happening to him in that moment, because he's clearly dying. Mm-hmm. But Wynonna is sort of debating in her head, like, should I do this or should I not? Like, she's listening to him. She's taking it into consideration. Like, she's full on thinking about what he's saying. And there's a moment where I thought it was going to happen. I was scared and in tears. I was just bawling.
You wanted his pain to end, and he felt like he had made the amends that he needed to kind of leave this world. But then you're asking the love of your life, let's just call a spade a spade, like, you're asking the love of your life to kill you, and then she has to deal with it because she loves him too.
Yeah.
But thankfully, What happens? Next moment, please.
Yes. So, in this emotional moment, we're dealing with Wynonna, who is tasked with the thought of maybe having to kill Doc. And then we see Dark Angel Waverly. I'm waiting for some like special music to start playing because like as she
Dun, dun,
appears,
dun.
Dark Angel Waverly appears and she's there looking for the book, right? She's there looking for
Yeah.
the book. There's a lot to say about Dark Angel Waverly. One of the most impactful moments was this moment where she comes up to Wynonna and she's looking for the book, and Wynonna, she's emotionally saying like, I know you're in there. And she even says, and this line really got me. She said, if you're going to take my sister away from me, at least save the man we both love. Seeing Wynonna wrestle with the idea that Waverly might not be there anymore was heartbreaking. To see her look at this Dark Angel Waverly with this knowledge that like it's her sister, but she knows it's not. Because earlier in the episode, she had a moment with this angel where she realized Waverly was not there in that moment. Like she blinded Wynonna.
Now, Allison, I just wanted to let you know I've actually had the pleasure to talk to Melanie over this weekend, and she gave me her top moment from the episode, which is this. And I'll just have you guys give it a listen.
Dark Waverly, just when she's the your sister loves you very much. And just that whole piece with her and Wynonna, because I could see Waverly inside wanting to come out, and then like Dark Waverly holding her in. Like she played that so beautifully. I think that's got to be it.
Yeah, that moment is such a good moment to hear. And I love that Mel chose that one, because that like there was a part of me that was like contemplating throughout the episode whether Waverly was in there at all. And like, because Waverly's coming up against all these people she loves. She came up against Wynonna and blinded her. She came up against Doc and like tried to get the book from him at the BBD facility. And there's a moment where Wynonna, she says, can you save Doc? And she's like, he's had all these chances already. He's kind of pushed the limits of his lifetime. And Wynonna even says, but you broke the rules too. You decided to not sit on the throne. And the Dark Angel says, you made me her, because it's Waverly in there. And so she's defending herself, but then she realizes she meant to say you made her, to kind of say, okay, maybe it's not completely Waverly. And, your sister loved you very much. That was just Wynonna's face. Gosh, like Melanie Scrofano, if there's anything that can kill me, it's that face.
Yeah. And she also said that your sister did this for you. And it was that thing that Jolene was saying last week, where Wynonna has done all of this to protect her because you wouldn't step up. And now she has stepped up, and Wynonna is basically telling her that she didn't, like, she was okay with the burden. She was okay with, dealing with it all if it meant keeping Waverly.
And luckily, Dark Angel Waverly decides that she is going to save Doc, and she, bends down and does a little magic, and
mind melding,
or
and
whatever, kind of she saves him. But that was even just as sad, though, because it's like maybe Wynonna thought that she would be able to convince this Dark Angel to kind of come back to her, but she just saves Doc and then she walks away.
Yeah.
And then Wynonna kind of breaks down and kind of like on Doc, and it's like seeing them two laying there. It's just like Wynonna thinks that's the last time she'll ever see her sister.
Yeah,
and she's heartbreaking.
Away with wings that she doesn't fly with.
No, those things look like they were gonna knock her over the whole episode. Every time she did a turn, I was like, "Whoa, get your balance."
I think that's why they put such like thick like motorcycle boots on her, just to like plant her in the ground.
Yeah. But let me just say a few things about Dark Angel Waverly, because I know last week I had a moment where I was like, I have no idea what's happening, no idea what this is going to be, no idea what this means.
Yes.
And so we have a couple of answers to that. And my one answer was like, is she actually evil? Is she? And my answer is, I don't think she was.
No, I don't think
She
so
didn't
either.
have the intention of coming to purgatory and destroying everything and killing everyone. I mean, it was, yeah, she blinded Wynonna. Yeah, that was kind of bad, but it was temporary.
Right. And she also did that because that's what Wynonna wanted, kind of
Yeah.
thing. She took it literally. She was
Right.
like, I can't see you go through this. And she's like, all right, you don't have to see then.
It's such a sister thing to do.
Because it's
if you think
happening.
about it. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a, actually thinking about that now kind of makes me laugh because it's like, if you have a sister, it's like, oh, well, you asked for it. Here you go. Like, I'm going to blind you now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we found a little bit about Dark Angel Waverly. Was it really Waverly? Not really, but she was in there. I think that it was her soul, perhaps, but I don't know that it was Waverly acting out everything. I don't think she was quite evil. I don't think she had the intention of hurting anyone. I think she just had the intention of getting the book and getting back to the garden to where she's supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. So this kind of goes into my next moment. And it is when Waverly acquires the book and she's on her way back to the garden, and Nicole comes to stop her. Now, just right before this was the BBD escape, and Jeremy told Nicole that his groin was on fire for her, which he should really get that checked out by a doctor. He told Nicole that she needed to go to the stairs because she was the only one that probably Dark Angel Waverly wouldn't hurt. And so Nicole,
I loved that in that moment. Like, they never said Waverly's name, but like both of them knew. Like, Jeremy said, "You're the only one she won't hurt," and Nicole just like kind of knew.
Yeah.
That was crazy to me.
So Nicole goes to the stairs and tries to stop Waverly, or Dark Angel, let's call her, because it's not Waverly just yet. And in order to stop her, the first thing is that Dark Angel said she couldn't break the rules, and she already broke them for John Henry Holiday. And Nicole, it was kind of funny because knowing Nicole and knowing like she's the sheriff of the town and she's like a goody, she's a do-gooder and everything like that. And she was kind of like, yeah, so you already broke the rules once. It's kind of fun, right? Why not do it again? And then, so the price is steep. Nicole becomes the shield of the Ghost River Triangle. And she quite literally got rooted to the Ghost River Triangle. If you notice this like zap that came from the book to Nicole, it showed like her feet planted in like roots. Not murder tree roots, but like just other other roots.
I don't know. Those murder trees will surprise you.
So she says that you could never leave the Ghost River Triangle. And Nicole, another throwback, says that everything she loves is already here. And then this vow that she makes, and I'm going to get this right. She says, I swear to be bound to the Ghost River Triangle for all of my days. I swear to be patient and just, for there is no other way. I swear my life to protecting the Ghost River Triangle. I am the angel's shield. So we have Wynonna is the champion. Waverly is the angel / guardian / failsafe. And then now Nicole is the shield.
The Holy Trinity.
The Holy Trinity, or the triangle, as
yes, 3 sides to the triangle. Oh my gosh, I just got that.
And then Nicole gets thrust from, when the barrier breaks, she gets thrust, and she wakes up a little ways away with a nice cool new tattoo on the back of her neck, which I think it was cool. I'm not a tattoo person myself because I don't like needles, but that would be something that I would get. But I just want to really quickly, talk about the validity or the really the binding contractness of this vow that she's made, or this bond that she has. Like, how like set in stone is it? Because they have a honeymoon that they need to plan for, and like, could they like maybe just leave and go on a honeymoon and then come, but like always come back to the Ghost River Triangle
I don't know.
kind
I
of
think
thing?
nope. I think she's like the Revenants. I don't think she can leave. I don't know what will happen to her if she crosses the line. I don't know that she'll burn like the Revenants, but she can't leave. But I don't know so much that it's a big deal because if you remember back in season 1, we learned that Waverly's never left the Triangle her entire life.
Yeah, but that would have been sweet that they could leave together now.
But see, the Triangle is not just purgatory. They can go to the big city. They can go to maybe there's a lake somewhere in the Triangle they can visit.
Right. Okay.
No,
And the other,
suspension of belief here. I'm sure there's a small location they can honeymoon. Maybe there's some mountain cabin somewhere on the edge of the Triangle that they can go to.
yeah. But I did like Nicole's lot, Nicole and Waverly. Waverly was like, "You sacrificed yourself for me," and she's like, "Come on, baby, don't oversell it. I just signed up to have a permanent staycation with my girl,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, that's sweet."
Yeah, I loved that moment. I thought that it was an amazing way to kind of like Nicole's always been the most human of everyone in this kind of group, which I think made her very valuable in that. But I think that finally giving her a reason to be such a big part of this group was really awesome. And I just love it for Kat Burrell because like she started this show as a 3-episode guest star.
Yeah.
And like this episode ended with her being the shield of the town. You know what I mean? Like that is crazy.
Now, obviously, we don't know, but does it come with any kind of like powers or whatever?
Good question.
But I just loved it, and it was definitely like another hero moment for Nicole in this episode.
Yeah, and I love that she also agreed to it before she even knew what the terms were. She was like, whatever it is, if it means you're safe, she was willing to do whatever it meant, whatever it took to keep Waverly from going into that garden. And then, of course, I love the moment where Waverly just kind of yeets the book back into the garden as the doors are closing.
Because obviously, because Nicole said, "Where you go, I go," remember? So she wasn't going to let Waverly go again anywhere without her. She was even willing to go up into the garden with
but the stairs, they wouldn't let her.
Right, because she was human. But yeah. All right, next moment for me at the end with Jeremy at the BBD facility, and Graham comes out and he's just like, "You got to call headquarters and tell them like we're in a crisis right now." And so Jeremy picks up that BBD bat phone and he's just like, "Nah, everything's cool over here. Sadly, General Graham didn't make it." And then Freddie happened to be there, and he comes up and he's just like, "Freddie, supper's up." And he just walks away, and it's such a short moment, but damn, Jeremy, like, somebody get me my fainting couch.
Yeah, I love that because it's such an uncharacteristic thing for the character of Jeremy to do. Like he always followed the rules and went by the book, and I love that at this point he was like, "Freddie, you can have him."
Yeah, because they're not taking poop from anybody anymore. Like it's their town. Like it's their like, welcome to my house. Like you don't come into my house and start rearranging the furniture. Like Purgatory is our town and we are protecting it from douches like you, or dickwads, actually,
as Nicole would say.
Yes. So this is my last moment, but it's actually somebody else's top moment of the episode. So I'm going to let her tell you guys what it is. Here's Emily Andress.
A top moment from last night. I think one of my top moments from last night is actually the final scene in Shorties when the entire family, so to speak, is sitting around the bar. That was actually the last scene we shot of season 4 for a lot of those characters. And just like the stuff the actors brought to it, like Jeremy wearing Doc's hat was really sweet, and just all the bonus blankets that Wynonna was piling on Doc. it's just so rare we get a scene where everybody's together, and even rarer that they're all kind of happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my top moments of 411. Also, you should listen to this podcast.
Thanks for the plug, Emily Andrews.
Yeah. So that was my last top moment of the episode, and it was the final scene. And as you heard Emily say, it was also one of the final scene that most of them shot together. What she mentioned, Jeremy wearing Doc's hat and all the bonus blankets and things, those were on my list as well. And also, just from a story point of view, we learned that when Dark Angel Waverly healed Doc, she also devamped him. And we all know that this was like a point of contention between him and Wynonna. So now they finally have that fresh start. A couple other things from that scene was when Nicole kept coughing and interrupting everything. Initially, the would-be kiss between Doc and Wynonna. And she's just like, really? You can't just interrupt intimate moments like that, Nicole. And she's just like, oh, really? Ha ha.
I think that's a long time coming for you, Wynonna. I think there will be many more interruptions because Nicole has a lot of payback to do.
Oh, yeah. And then also we maybe got, what is it now? A fifth, the sixth proposal? Like, are we going to have a wedding or what?
I think we're going to have a wedding.
And so those are a few bits from that, and we also learned that BBD is no longer in the Ghost River Triangle. It still exists outside of it. And possibly, whatever they're doing outside, who knows? But as of right now, it's no longer, and according to Jeremy, he doesn't work there anymore. Maybe ? I don't know. Does he still work for them or not? So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
That was a good moment. And when I was watching it, it felt almost as if it was like the actors themselves sitting there and chatting, because it was just so casual. Mm-hmm. And like it felt, I mean, Emily even said this when she said her moment, but like you so rarely see them happy. Mm-hmm. So having them all sit there together and talk about it, it just kind of felt like it wasn't really them. It felt like they were just like chatting in between the scenes or something. It was really cool, but I loved it.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the picture that
I was going to actually say that.
Oh, the
with
picture,
dolls.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, like we didn't get to see that moment of them all around the table. This was kind of like a live action of it as well. And they were all together and everything.
And it kind of proves his point. He said, keep fighting. And they did.
That's our top 5 this week. It was jam-packed with moments. I definitely think Dark Waverly needs to be on the list. Nicole's hero moments, the one that you said,
both of them,
in BBD, and the one that by the stairs. I think we can combine those and just say Nicole hero moments are another one.
Doc and Wynonna's duel, right?
That's another one. And then really the whole jail cell thing that started it all, even with Vamp Mercedes, but even the thing that you said with Doc and Jeremy, that can be combined because it was like one act, one scene. And then it's pretty much all of ours on the list. We just kind of did variations of it. So really all of our lists are on there. And then obviously the final moments in the bar, I think we need to have on there just because it was just nice to see them all together and just like a little bit of this, the weight of this season of these things off of their shoulders a little bit. Let's hear from you guys. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Do you have your own top 5? Did you like what you heard from Melanie and Emily? Do you want to hear more top 5s from them? Just let us know. Leave us a comment. Allison, where can they find us?
You can find us on Twitter at ErpTop5.
And you can come yell at me at Laura Meet World.
And you can find me at Nona Wayhot, except don't come yell at me.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening.